my boss in Alaska, the first winter that we were there, was like, oh, how's the winter going for you? Your first winter here. And I was like, honestly, it's really hard. I didn't expect it to be this hard. And he said, yeah, my wife cried the first 3 years we lived here or whatever.
First 5 years.
Or first 5 years. And they had lived there for 20 years. And
the winters last 6 months. Like,
yeah,
it's
most of the years in winter.
So his wife was crying
every year.
180 days a year or whatever it is. No. Yeah, is that right? 360? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And we were just dumbfounded. But we tell that story at parties. We're like, if anyone is ever asking about Alaska, we talk about
that the winters are hard. Because people ask that a lot.
Just that particular story. Like,
well, yeah, but I mean, like people ask a lot about the winter, and we'll always be like, oh, it's really hard. We had a hard time. And then we always tell that story that, like, my boss lived there for 20 years, and his wife cried every year for the first 5 years just because the winter sucks so bad.
Because
they weren't from there; they were from somewhere.
After that, she was just broken. She was just dead inside. You can't cry anymore. You don't feel anything. It's just so. Yeah,
I remember the day he told me that. I came home and I said, "That will not be us." I was like, "We are only doing one winter here. That's our like stay, that's our one thing."
That's enough. It'll be an interesting story. All right. Welcome to Honestly Comical. I'm Cody. This is Melissa. Today's Honestly Comical, yet again, is it's honestly comical how little fun we had in Alaska and just how miserable we were. This is, I think, part 3. So just a few more stories and we want to talk about how we finally got out of there as well.
I think first we can talk about just kind of some of the funny stories we have from hanging out with people there, and just sort of the random people we met that gave us some laughs while we were there, and then we can transition into stories on how we left and stuff like that.
There were some good times. I mean, we talked about Herb.
Yeah. Herb was a highlight of Alaska.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about, I think we mentioned this previously in one of the other episodes, but basically there's nothing to do there except either drive around with nowhere to go, just listening to music, or just go to a bar. And hopefully there will be someone there worth talking to.
And the driving around part is honestly claustrophobic. Like,
it is.
It's nice. It's nice to drive around and listen to music, and just hang out. And that's something that we did even before we moved to Alaska. Mm-hmm. And we took it up there even more because there was just nothing else to do. But it's 30 minutes, like around 30 to 40 minutes to drive from one end of the island all the way back to the other end. So it was just like, you are really on an island now. Whenever whenever in one weekend you drive back and forth the entire expanse of what you can drive 20 times, it's just a little bit like, I need to see anything else, please,
And I feel like we would start doing that whenever we were feeling really claustrophobic in our apartment. And we're like, we have to go somewhere. And we'd be like, where is there to go? Nowhere. I guess we'll just drive around. But then it was like, even though we were driving, it felt a little bit better to be out of the apartment. But like Cody's saying, like, you go from one end to the other and you just are yet again met with like how tiny this place is and how there's nowhere to go and how it costs $2,000 to put your car on any other piece of land besides this piece of land you're on. And it's like, it was so claustrophobic.
Yeah. You're really, once you're there, you're there.
Yeah.
I worked at Safeway. We talked about this for a minute, but I was talking to, so in Alaska, they have this program where essentially like high schoolers have to work a certain number of hours as a class to graduate. So whenever I was working at a random grocery store, I wound up surrounded by a bunch of kids that are just want to graduate school. And I remember talking to one of them at one point and saying, like, yeah, we're looking to move out in the next year or so. And they said to me, yeah, how long you been here? And I was like, a year. And they're like, yeah, it sounds like you're stuck here. Like, I don't know anyone that's ever left. And I was like, that is the most morbid thing I can imagine. Like,
literally, like, it felt like whenever we'd be like, oh yeah, we're probably gonna move, they'd be like, oh, first time. Like like that was the vibe. There was everyone says that when they first get here, and then no one ever makes it out.
they call it the rock.
The rock.
Yeah,
because you're just stuck on this rock.
Like people are like, man, I'd love to get off the rock. I'm like, just do it. Like, just save.
Just go.
Save. I don't know. Like, save your money and just leave. I don't know, but yeah, it was so frustrating.
It was also funny. We'd tell people, oh yeah, we're moving back to California, and they'd say, oh, California would be nice, but it's way too expensive there. And we kept telling everyone, it's not any more expensive than it is here. It's expensive here.
If anything, it might be cheaper to live here. We have a much nicer place here, and the food's cheaper. So it equals out, or is cheaper to live here. I know you had a coworker that you would talk to her about, like, where you were from, and she was from here too, and she would say essentially, "Aren't you glad you aren't back in California?" Every time you talk to her, and
yeah. I would always be like, yeah. Like, and in my head, I'm like, I cannot wait to get out of here. But I had two coworkers, both from the same town that I grew up in. And both of them had that attitude of like, isn't this place so much better? And I was like, I'm really glad you guys like it here. Like, I'm so happy you found your place, but it is not for me. And that's another thing I'll say, like, we're kind of shitting on Alaska a lot in these episodes, of course, because we didn't like it.
Can't stop, won't stop.
But it is for some people. Like, there are some people out there where this is the place for you and you'll love it and you'll never want to leave. But it just wasn't for us, or wasn't for me. I for sure hated it, and I think it's mainly just because I'm from a place that's so big. I'm used to just driving to Portland on a weekend if I want, or going to LA on a weekend, or anywhere,
or Vegas, or like, Reno, or like anywhere. I mean, like anywhere you want to go,
even 8 hours within California, because California is so big, like on its own, that you can drive for 8 hours and still be in California somewhere else. And I'm just used to doing that. And I, for some reason, stupidly didn't think about what it would be like to go from that to living on this tiny island, which was silly on my part. I should have realized that that's a hard adjustment. But again, we were very young, so you live and learn. But
yeah. And I asked you just before we started what your least favorite part about living in Alaska was, and you were saying it was just not being able to talk to your family.
Yeah, I think when the pandemic hit and everyone started hanging out virtually, no matter how far away you lived from the person, we ended up talking to our family like way more, because everyone was doing things remotely or virtually. And so we ended up getting to hang out with them and getting to talk to them like way more. So I remember when the pandemic happened, we were just kind of holed up in our apartment, which is not that different from every other day in Alaska. And then I got to talk to my family more than I used to. So it honestly was kind of nice that everyone else was stuck at home now and could talk to us more. I also
wound up leaving my job because I was so exposed to the public, and she was already working from home, and there's no point in her working from home. And then and this was very early days pandemic, like before we understood anything that was going on. So we were sort of like, well, let's just sit this out for a few weeks and see what's going on. I don't want you I don't want you to think we like overreacted or anything, but we were like, let's just see what's going on. So I left one of my jobs and then stayed home, and we just sort of were trying to play it out, you know. So we were just at home. You were furloughed at the time, right?
I got the news that I was furloughed, but
at first you were just like sort of working from home.
I think I was only actually unemployed for like a month there because I was already applying for new jobs like before any of this happened because I didn't like my job. And the timing worked out pretty good where my company said, okay, we're furloughing everybody for 6 months with no pay. And I had already put in applications, and so I just continued putting in more applications, and then I got one of those jobs. And they were nice enough because they were all working from home because of the pandemic, so they actually allowed me to start work while we were in Alaska. So
that was cool.
I was only unemployed for like a month, which was very lucky.
And but whenever they like started rolling out the stimulus checks, when we started getting the stimmies and we were staying home, and like
when the stimmy hits
and we were staying home hanging out with the family and and
I was starting my new job.
Yeah, you had
from home.
Your dream job, by the way.
Job.
A job that actually put your degree to use, and was what you wanted to do all along.
Yeah.
And
what I went to college for.
So what we're saying is COVID's really good.
COVID was good for us.
No, COVID's
big fan of that COVID fella.
No, I'm sorry if COVID impacted any of you negatively, but for us though, truly, we had a pretty sweet thing going on.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have to see any of my stupid coworkers anymore. No, I'm just kidding. I did have a lot of people I did enjoy working with, but there were also a lot that I didn't enjoy working with.
Mainly upper management. It wasn't like anyone like that you actually worked with or worked under you enjoyed working with. But since then, we've actively encouraged a couple people to come live out here, or out there rather, because they sound like they would enjoy it. I mean, there are people that will enjoy living in Alaska. They exist. They aren't us, but they exist. And when you have a conversation with someone, you can sort of just get an idea for whether or not this is the lifestyle for them. Mainly if they're like middle-aged Republicans or people that really enjoy being outdoors all the time, even when it's cold. Those are
and people ask us, and I'm not gonna lie, like people are like, oh, you lived in Alaska, how'd you like it? And I just have an honest conversation with them. I didn't like it because there's not a lot to do, and I'm used to doing a lot of things. I think for people who their favorite pastime is hiking and fishing and looking at the ocean, you'll love it there.
Yeah.
But my favorite pastimes are going to events and, I don't know, driving. I love to drive far distances. I always have, and that's not what you can do there. So
two points about that. Like, so I also have one of my best friends from my home state on the East Coast, like 3,000 miles away from Alaska, was in my graduating class, in my grade. We grew up I've known her since I was born. Wound up living in Alaska. She still lives in Alaska, absolutely loves it, and wouldn't trade it for anything. Started out doing seasonal work and now just works full-time on different boats out there, and absolutely enjoys it to the fullest extent and is living her best life, and that's great, and I love that for her. But that just wasn't our experience, and that wasn't something that we felt. Also, people that might need health care, like
that's
any kind of health care, like if you like stub your toe really hard, they're gonna fly you to Seattle. Like, that's something you need to understand. If you have any sort of pre-existing condition and you think that you might need to see a real hospital within the time that you're staying in Alaska, you shouldn't move there. That's something that I can say with confidence. We both had coworkers that were not old just die because they had
a health issue that should not have killed them. But because they did not have access to good health care, they died. And it's a very sad reality up there. And that is something I will always mention. Like, even if someone like is set on moving there, I can't help but just tell them that, because it's something we never thought about when we moved there. And then we saw it firsthand that people die here because there's not good health care. If I had a heart attack randomly, I could just die because the healthcare there is not good. So that's something I really make sure to mention. Like, oh, I'm so happy you're really excited about Alaska. One thing I really want you to know or think about is the healthcare. Like research the place you're going and look at what kind of hospitals they have. For example, the island we were on had one hospital, and it only had 200 beds, which served the entire island and all the neighboring islands, which I think was like 20,000 people or something, with like all the neighboring islands, and they would have to come in by boat. So anyone on those islands, the pregnant women, within like their last like month or 2 months of pregnancy, would come and stay in a hotel. They had to like pay to stay in a hotel near the hospital just in case, because if they went into labor over there, they'd have to charter a boat or a plane or something. And like, imagine you have complications, you're not going to make it. So it's very scary.
Yeah, it really is.
So I just think that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're thinking about moving to a remote location. Like,
whenever we talk to people about this, we like pull out like the insurance chart and like, do you have any pre-existing conditions like diabetes, does heart disease run in your family? I don't know if Alaska
we like score them and then tell them, oh, you scored too high to live in Alaska, sorry.
Exactly. But
yeah, so that is something to keep in mind. But let's move on to some more lighthearted stories. As we were kind of leading into, there's not a lot to do there other than drive around. And by around, I just mean back and forth, or just go to the bar and like try to talk to somebody and like have a good time. So
sometimes we would just walk downtown to just so like there's a few bars there that we're allowed to go to.
Oh yeah.
What I mean by that is there. I don't know if you can even say this, but there are some bars that are only native people are allowed to go there, and if you do go there, you should probably bring someone who is a native islander, and
looks like they are.
Yeah, otherwise they will just either throw you out or hurt you.
Tourists have been stabbed there. That's not a joke.
That's a true story.
That's real.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah, ask which is the most touristy bar. If you're looking for a bar on this island, that we're not going to tell you where it is, but
tourists would ask me like bars to go to, and the one that we're talking about is like a very prime location where it's easy to spot. It's right near the ships. And I would have to warn them. I'd say, definitely do not go here, but go to these other ones.
Yeah.
Because it's dangerous in there.
Yeah. They have popcorn, though. So it's like,
yeah, maybe. Yeah,
it's dangerous, but...
We've been in there
I think it's the only bar that has popcorn. I was in there a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, but it's the only bar that has popcorn.
With a chauffeur. You have to go with a chaperone.
Yeah. 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 Shout out, Paul.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Thanks for the good time, Paul.
Yeah, but we had fun there, and it's not as bad as it sounds if you're allowed in. I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't have any issues there, but I've just heard a lot of stories about if you go there without someone that everyone knows. But anyway.
Yeah. But the bar, we would walk downtown, and there were a couple bars that are pretty friendly and have a nice vibe. That's honestly one of the best parts of our whole stay was there are places you can go to that have a decent vibe and you can take friends there and they have pizza for sale and stuff like that. Like the things that you would expect anywhere else, like being able to find those in a place there, that's good. And
another cool thing about it just being kind of desolate and not a lot of people is I don't know if a lot of people know this, because unless you've been to a bar where this has happened, you might just not know, but most bars have a bell, and if somebody rings the bell, they buy everyone in the bar around. And I have never been to a bar where that has happened outside of Alaska. That's never happened because bars outside of Alaska are usually pretty packed. But it's not uncommon to go to a bar in Alaska and there's literally 4 people in the building. And so someone will ring the bell and just buy everybody a drink. But I have been to bars in Alaska where it's actually pretty crowded. There's probably 50 people there, and people are still ringing the bell and buying everyone around. So they have little tokens that they'll give out.
I was hoping you'd bring those up because cool. That was super cool. Like
I would just keep them.
We still have like drink tokens from the bars in Alaska where just if we ever went back one day for any reason, we could just go cash in for a couple drinks. But it's just a nice keepsake for that time. Yeah, that was fun.
I remember one time I was at this bar, and it was me and a couple of friends, and there was one guy, one stranger, but everyone else in the bar was my friend. And he ended up, I thought he left, but I think he was just outside smoking or something, but I thought he was gone. And so I looked around and I realized, hey, everyone in this bar is my friend. So I rang the bell and I was all excited to buy everybody around. And then the guy runs inside from like smoking. He's like, hey, I get a drink, right? And I was like, sure, whatever, I'll buy you a drink. But that was kind of fun. So I got to ring a bell once.
I don't think I've heard that story.
Speaking of when we would go to bars and hang out, one story or one time sticks out in my memory as being hilarious. We were at a bar and we started talking to this guy at the bar, and he seemed kind of cool, and we were buying shots. So there's this guy we're talking to, and we're like, hey, we're buying shots of tequila. Do you want one? He's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So we buy him a shot of tequila. Also, if you're not a big tequila drinker, I'll just quickly explain. I'm sure everybody knows this, but typically when you do a shot of tequila, you put some salt on your hand and you lick the salt off, you do the shot, and then you suck on a lime, and it just makes the shot taste better. So we all have our salt and our lime and everything, and this guy turns to us and he goes, have you guys ever seen a stuntman shot? And we were like, what? And before we could even ask him what he meant, he snorts the salt off of his hand, drinks the shot straight, and then squirts the lime in his eyes. And this might be some common thing that other people know about, but I had not heard about it until we saw this man do it, and I have not heard anybody do this since. Like I have never heard of anybody else doing this. So for us, this was an interesting,
very Alaskan experience.
Yeah. I was freaking, I was just like screaming, like, what's going on? And then he did all that, and then he just left.
That was, I didn't know if you were going to mention that part, but he did that, and he just like sort of like walked by, like shook hands, and he's like, all right, bye.
Bye. Like, I got to go home now because my eyes are stinging and my nose.
He probably went out into his car and was just like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Why? Like.
But he really didn't react much.
Yeah.
That is probably why he left quickly, I would imagine.
At the bar, he reacted zero. Yeah, his eyes weren't even watering. Mm-hmm. Like he wiped the lime away, and he was just like, fine. I just can't imagine. This salt in your nose, drinking tequila,
no
and then
chaser
lime
for the
in your
tequila.
Eyes. Yeah.
Lime in your eyes and snorting salt. All of that is horrible. I can't even imagine taking a straight shot of tequila with no chaser, period. That's it. That is too much for me. But to take a straight shot after you just snorted salt and then to squirt lime in your eye, honestly, the lime in the eye part is probably the least offensive in my mind. Like, I feel like I could handle that better than the other two parts.
I think we'd have to try each one because I feel like
maybe we need to try stuntman shots
they're all
on
pretty
the podcast.
bad.
Oh no.
Yeah, we might next podcast we might be doing stuntman shots right here.
Yeah, stay tuned.
But but just I feel like the shot, like you don't really need a chaser whenever you just snorted salt. Like what else can you do to me?
Maybe that's the trick, is you start with the salt thing because then you're so focused on that pain that nothing else hurts. I don't know. That part does seem really painful though.
Maybe it doesn't even hurt. I don't know. Maybe this is all like just smoke and mirrors. Maybe it's not that bad. We'll have to give it a try. That was
wild though.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Maybe
I don't even remember that guy.
Maybe the worst part's the tequila.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Well, yeah, we'll try it on the next episode of the podcast, Stuntman Shots, right here. You heard it here first, folks.
We're just going to be crying the whole time. It'll be like Hot Ones.
We'll do it at the very end.
We should just start a YouTube show like Hot Ones, but it's called like Stuntmen or something. That's stupid, and then everyone just does a stuntman shot, and then you have to try to answer interview questions. What do you think?
No,
bad, terrible.
But yeah, next time we'll give that a try. At the end of the episode, we can do one of those.
I'm not committing to it right now, but I could maybe be talked into it.
She will be talked into it. We will do it at the end of I mean, I've already said it 3 times now.
That's true.
Live. Right here.
I'm editing this out.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, like that. But yeah, also another thing that's kind of fun to do after a night drinking downtown is to jump off of the docks where the cruise ships park into the ocean. And this is something that is tradition out there. Everybody does it. Everyone's done it. I have jumped off the docks a few times in my day, mostly only when I was there for the summer when I was younger, not when we moved there. I don't think I ever did it when we actually lived there. I was too old by that point. That was like 2 years later. But the thing about the docks or the ocean there in general, the tide changes up to 6 feet per day. Or like it actually changes multiple times per day, but it can change up to 6 feet or so, I think.
It feels more like 10 now. When you're looking at the water.
Yeah. But that's just a fact I vaguely remember, so I think that's right. But yeah, the cruise ships park on these docks, and cruise ships are huge. And so the water's already kind of far down there, and then at low tide, it is so far down there. And one time I was drinking with friends, and then afterward we're like, should we jump off the docks, sorry. And I jumped off the docks, and I had already done it once, and so then I was feeling all confident. I didn't even try to see how low the water was because I remember doing it last time and it was fun and it was great. So I just jumped and I started falling, and I fell for so long that I had time to think, shouldn't I have hit the water by now? And then there was a few seconds, and then I hit the water. Like, it was it was the longest fall I've ever felt. And then I hit the water so hard that I had bruises all down the back of my legs and like all over myself from just breaking the surface tension. And then I had to climb up the ladder, and there's barnacles all over it, and they were literally slicing my palms and my feet. Yeah. And so I come up, and I'm covered in bruises. I mean, not yet. They haven't formed. But, like, the next day, I was covered in bruises. Like, the gnarliest bruises I think I've ever had in my life. Like, and I had all these scrapes.
The low tide ladder has way more barnacles than, like, the high tide ladder. Because,
the bottom ones.
Yeah, once the water's up, the barnacles can't really live up there. But, like, whenever the water's down, like, 6 to 10 feet... it's just like covered in these razor sharp,
painful.
So
Yeah, that was nuts.
I bet that wasn't fun.
If you're going to jump off the docks in Alaska, check the water level. Because obviously it was very dark. I don't know if I mentioned that. It was very dark, so I didn't see where the water was. I assumed the water would be where I'm used to it being, and it was way further down.
It was down.
Yeah, it was probably like a 30-foot jump, if I had to guess. But that is a story the tourists really like, and whenever I tell them that story, they would always feel bad for me, and I tended to get more tips.
Covered in bruises, sliced up by barnacles.
Because it's the only fun thing to do. Yeah.
Have to live in Alaska, we'll give you money.
Most of the time I would tell people that when they would ask, what is there to do around here? What do you guys do for fun? I'd say, pretty much, I'd be like, you know where your cruise ship's parked right now? Well, when that thing leaves tonight, people are going to jump off the docks where it used to be.
Yeah, whenever that like skyscraper on its side just like leaves town.
Yeah.
Those things are so much bigger than you think they're going to be. So after the whole COVID incident where we were sort of like living at home and Melissa had found another job and we were just trying to generally find a way to vacate the area as quickly as possible because we already didn't want to live there anymore. We started trying to find fun things to do that we hadn't done yet because we were so busy with work or time just hadn't allowed it. And one night we just decided that it was time for us to go kayaking. So we headed on down to the cove and rented a couple kayaks, and this was my first time kayaking. You had been on a few different tours.
Not just tours, but I have been kayaking my whole life pretty much in the rivers.
From the womb.
Yeah. In the rivers around where I grew up in California, we would go kayaking all the time. But I will say this was my first time on a kayak of this kind. We were on these kayaks that had like a raised seat.
It was what a horrible design.
Yeah, I really don't understand why anyone would prefer this over the kind that you sit in. I've been in the ones where you're inside the kayak, you know, your legs are actually inside of the thing. I've been in those many times, and those are fun. Like you can go fast, you can be tilting and twirling and everything and not flip over, and they're very sturdy, and I like those. These ones were very weird.
Yeah, to describe them, it's like a kayak, only they filled in the center hole and then set a chair on top of that. So you're just like up above the water, way awkward high. And like anytime you like lean to paddle more in one direction or something, you're worried you're gonna like flip over. So it was, I don't know. The whole design is really stupid. I feel like it's for safety reasons, maybe because your legs aren't tucked inside of a plastic hole, you know. Yeah, but the ones you sit in are definitely less likely to tip over because your center of gravity is much lower. And these were just chairs on top of boats. Like it was just an interesting experience.
They were hard to get on. Remember getting on them on the dock?
They were hard to get on just to even try to leave the... And then they were just... I feel like in a regular kayak, I'd have just been going. Yeah. But like, but on these like weird lawn chairs on top of canoes, I was just...
I do have pictures of us, so maybe I'll pop a picture of what the canoe looked like.
Yeah, no.
For the YouTube viewers.
That sounds great. Yeah, show them our experience. I think we might have videos too, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll have to look.
But, yeah, we just went out into the Pacific Ocean. And by the way,
the place where we went to rent these kayaks is kind of internet famous for having whales bubble feed there. So it's kind of cool. The whales... Okay, if you don't know what bubble feeding is, I'll just start over and explain that part. But whales, essentially, when they're trying to eat fish, will swim well, I think they swim down first, right? And then they do a circle, like a big circle, and they're blowing bubbles. They're blowing air out and creating this basically a ring of bubbles, and fish don't feel comfortable swimming through that ring, so they get trapped in this circle. And then the whale will just basically make this big circle of rings. Then they dive down and they come up from the bottom with their mouth wide open, and they come up and they basically swallow the entire ring. And when they come out of the water and they breach, their mouth is open, and then they flip over on their back, and then they go back in the water. And it's amazing to see. And they bubble feed all along the coast all year round, pretty much, mostly in the summer. So that is one really cool thing about where we lived is every time I was driving anywhere, I would constantly be checking the water that's next to me, just in case I saw a bunch of seagulls or something. If there are a lot of seagulls in one area circling, then you know that there's some fish down, being corralled by a whale, and you can pull over really quick and watch a whale bubble feed. So, but this cove where we went to rent these kayaks, sometimes the whales go all the way into that cove because the water there is deceptively deep. And
even like right in so there's floating docks. So it's like the whole cove right from the shoreline is 40 feet deep plus going out. So yeah, because the docks are just, like I said, it's just a wooden dock built out with just flotation devices under it.
Yeah.
And
but yeah, so it's kind of a cool area. But anyways, go ahead. You were talking about us kayaking.
Oh no, we just went out, and it was raining that day, and that almost deterred us as well, but we were like, no, this is one of the only chances we're going to get to really go out and experience.
Because it rains there all the time, and it was actually kind of a good day. It was like sprinkling, and it just started to rain, and we thought, is it too rainy? But then I thought, it's never going to be less rainy than it is right now. It's actually not too bad right now.
Most days when it's raining, it's just misting anyway. Like it's just a very fine shower. And so we just put on rain jackets and hats, and went down there and decided we're gonna go rent kayaks. And as soon as we got on the water, the sky just opened up. There was just sun, and it was a beautiful day. Tucked our rain jackets down into the boat, and it was really nice. We were on our way.
It was kind of funny because we called ahead because we saw on the website that they closed at like 6 and it was already 5 or something. And we're like, I don't know how long the rental is. Again, I think we mentioned this in a previous episode, but nothing in this place has an actual website. It's all like Facebook pages and stuff. I think this place actually did have a website, but it's still not a good website. It doesn't have all the information you want, so you still have to call them. And we called and we said, hey, we want to come down and kayak, but we're concerned about time. I see you guys close at 6. Is that like a hard deadline? We need to have the kayaks back and check in with somebody by 6, or how's that work? And they literally were like, I mean, as long as you get here before 6 and then take it out, you could always just like leave them at the dock like after. Yeah. We're like, okay.
I assumed they're like low jacked or something, but
maybe I don't know.
Yeah, they were just like, yeah, you could just show up when there's people here and then leave, and then there won't be people here anymore, but you just put the kayak there. And then we're like, all right, cool. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so funny. They just let their assets out with anybody. They're like, go ahead, take it out. We don't care if you bring it back.
There's also like no instruction whatsoever. So me never having been on a kayak, and I understand when you rent something, the onus is on you to understand how to operate it. And that's fine. But also, we were in a marina, so there's other like vehicles coming in and out, and just boats and yachts and other kayakers and seaplanes and I don't know how to navigate that kind of traffic, but we just sort of like stayed to the side until we got out of the no wake zone.
Just tried to go pretty slow, and let people go around us.
Yeah, but when we got out of the no wake zone, Also, with these kayaks that are raised, like we were saying, the chair is like up out of the water. You wind up splashing yourself so much. Whereas if your feet were like underneath, like if you were like in a hole with your feet out in like a little canoe thing, you wouldn't be getting water on yourself. But you're just like constantly like splashing water on yourself.
Yeah, I struggled with that too. Like my whole sleeve was like soaked. This was like August, by the way, so
which is part of the winter there.
Yeah, it's not really peak weather. It would have been nicer if it was warmer, but like we were saying, we were about to move away, and this was kind of our last chance of it being good weather and everything, so we decided to go. The water was cold, and it was cold outside, so like I was wearing a jacket, and my whole sleeve was like soaking wet.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
And also this marina is just it's the Pacific Ocean. Like, it's not like a lake or something. It is the Pacific. There are whales here. The water's very deep. There are boats and seaplanes. Like Cody mentioned, there were a ton of seaplanes there just constantly launching and landing on the water. So there's a lot of activity.
So we were paddling out, like, just close to the side of the docks, trying to avoid any of the seaplanes and yachts and stuff that are flying in. And it's a no-wake zone, so people are going at roughly like 70 miles per hour. Or something.
I was going to say. So they're, going really fast.
It's a no-wake zone, so no one cares. And
yeah, we're just
every time a boat goes by, like, we're like really close to tipping over because these are not well-designed boats. I don't know if they just made these or something, but I'm kayaks with a seat above the actual craft itself, stupid.
If anyone listening knows why that's better for whatever reason, let us know, because as far as I can tell, they suck.
Yeah, I would love to hear about why I'm wrong. Thank you. Maybe it's better for fishing or something. Maybe people will take them out fishing.
Yeah. Or
I don't know. But
I don't either.
But we were like just paddling out into the ocean, and we were like going down the coastline, and our house was only, a few miles from there. It was like a 20-minute drive, but it's sort of windy, so.
I wouldn't say 20 minutes.
How long is it?
10?
10 minutes?
Yeah.
So 15-minute drive, and
there you go.
we can maps it right now if you want. It's like a 15-minute drive, and it's sort of windy, so it takes us a minute to get there. But we were paddling down there, and we realized we're about halfway home. Like, if we had done this at a time where we had more time to screw around and take the boats out, we could have gone home for lunch and like docked behind the house where there's no windows and we might have to fight some seals to get in, but we could have just gone in and got some sandwiches, hopped back on and taken them back down realistically. And that's just how small this island is. Mm-hmm. And we were just paddling out, and we finally get out into like the open ocean. We're away from we can't see the marina anymore. We're away from the no-wake zone by a good mile or so. And we start just like looking around the area and seeing lots of cool wildlife. Like there's all kinds of starfish just planted along the sides of the ocean there. Just little critters we saw running around. There are lots of crabs and starfish.
Also, the starfish are on these rocks, but as we mentioned, they like the locals call this place the Rock because the ground is essentially just made of rock. It's actually made of a type of rock that's called schist rock. And so the tourist joke that we all tell people when they ask about it is basically this island's a big old pile of schist. So basically, and the tide was kind of lower. It wasn't, I wouldn't call it low tide, but it was either going down or going up. It was a little bit lower than normal.
Another thing to paint the picture, though, there's no sand here. I just don't want you to be confused about like what everything looks like. There's just like steep rocks on either side of you.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at with like it's low tide and the whole island is rock. So it's basically a straight vertical sheet of rock.
Yeah.
And that is what we're kind of hugging as we're kayaking. We're close to that because we don't want to be out in the open where the boats are. So we're like basically next to just like vertical rock face.
Also, at this point, we haven't seen any boats in a while. Like we're out there. Like we were beyond, like way beyond the marina, and the traffic wasn't very heavy that day. So we were just alone in the middle of the ocean. And you were like really interested in the sea life along.
Yeah. So I saw a starfish. Well, I saw multiple starfish under the water along this rock, but then I saw one that was a little bit above the water because the tide had gone down enough that it was out in the open, and I wanted to get closer. So I start paddling closer to the rock, and I got my phone out. I took some pictures of it. I grabbed my paddle and I put it on the rock to pull my kayak over. And I even have a picture, maybe I'll put it on the screen, of my paddle on the rock and the starfish right there. And then I put my phone in my pocket and I reach over because I'm super close to the rock at this point that I think, oh, I'm just going to grab the rock and hold myself here so that I can take a look at the starfish because the ocean is moving and it's pulling me. And so I'm like, I'm just going to hold on. The second I reach my arm out and lean the slightest amount, I'm in the water.
Yeah.
I flipped the kayak over.
Fast. Yeah.
So I completely capsized. My phone is in my pocket. I'm not really freaking out. Like my anxiety is normal level, but the water is so cold, it being August, that it's taking my breath away. With every word I try to say, I'm gasping for air, even though I'm not freaking out, but it sounded like I was just freaking out. So I'm trying to ask Cody to paddle over to me and take my phone, but all that comes out of my mouth is like like just like breathing like that. Like I can't catch my breath.
You got out. Take my phone.
Take my phone like that, and I'm like holding it in the air. And so Cody paddles over to me, and both of us are very aware of the fact that he cannot lean to me to grab my phone, or he will now flip his kayak. Like, so basically we very carefully.
Yeah. I was able to reach out and grab your phone, but beyond that, there is nothing I can do to help you. Like, you can't get on my kayak or we flip.
Yep.
I can't flip your kayak or I flip. I can't. Like, there's just
nothing.
So little I can do to help you. Like on our like on our life jackets, there's some whistles. I can blow a whistle.
You can blow a whistle.
I was.
And we had our phones, and so basically we kind of stopped once you grabbed my phone and my keys. My keys were in my pockets too.
Which, it's like all electronics now mostly.
Yeah,
so.
the key fob is electronic, so we were concerned about that getting wet. So I hand him those things. And then beyond that, we just sit there for a sec and think. We're like, what the hell do we do now? Because as we mentioned, it's low tide and it's just a sheer rock face. It's like a cliff, basically. There's nothing to hold on to. We're like a mile out from the marina. There's no boats anywhere. Like, what do we do? And also, my kayak's flipped completely upside down still, and I'm trying, so I'm floating in the water. I have a life jacket on. I'm floating in the water, and I'm trying to lift this kayak, but to lift it while you're floating, you have to lift it like above your head, and it's heavy, and the seat is underwater, causing more drag, so I can't flip it.
Horrible design. By the way, whoever invented those, again, in the comments, let us know why we're wrong.
Yeah.
But
I feel like I would have been able to flip over a hollow kayak by myself floating in the water. So, yeah. So anyway, so I grab my paddle, I hand it to you, I hand you my phone and my keys, and then we're just like, what do we do now? Luckily, I had my extra tufts on.
I was because I'm up there with all the phones and all the, and I'm like, I can call the marina right now, and I can probably get the Coast Guard out here
or
whatever.
That's what we started saying. We're like, should we just call the Coast Guard, or is that overreacting?
Yeah, because those are the only options. Is like we find a way to fix this, or we bring in the military. There's two options now, and we chose to sit a minute and think about what we could do. So you were just like sort of treading water, and I'm really bad at steering these kayaks because I have never been on a kayak, let alone one that was terribly designed. And
I think at one point we thought, should you paddle back to the marina? But then I think both of us were like, we shouldn't.
That would have taken over an hour.
Would have taken longer than a phone call, and also like we shouldn't like split up. Like I don't want to just be here in the water by myself.
No, that was like we sort of like spitballed a lot of ideas, and I talked about calling. I talked about going back, and finally we sort of just came to, let's see. Because I can't really, all I can do really to help is like push her kayak along with my paddle while she also like paddles beside it, like doggy paddles beside it and like pushes it along. And I was like, there looks like a spot up in the distance where you can probably stand up. Like the rock face comes down a little bit, and finally,
and that was brilliant because I didn't even really see it from where I was.
Well, because you were in the water.
Yeah, you had to be up on your seat, but he like spots like 20 feet down. It looks like you might be able to use that as leverage or something. We didn't even think that it was.
It was like 20 yards down. You were in the water for a while.
Yeah. And, I mean, from where you are, you can't help with your paddle too much because, again, you can't lean or put any real weight behind it or you're going to flip over. So I remember it being extremely hard and heavy to, like, pull this kayak while I'm swimming. So I'm swimming with a life jacket on.
Near enough that I can, if ever I need to, like, dive in and help for some reason or help in some other way, I'm like next to you.
Yeah.
But also I can't steer this fucking thing, so I'm like trying to like stay away but also close. And stay away but also I need to be near you. Like pretty much. And it was just
and I'm just like dragging this freaking heavy kayak. And I finally get to the rock that we saw, and sure enough, it's actually shallow enough that I can get myself onto it. So now I'm standing and I'm like, oh, okay, that's the hard part. I'm out of the water now. I'm not going to get hypothermia. We're good. And I am able to flip my kayak over from the standing position. But then I'm like, this was hard enough to get on when we were on the dock. Now I have to get onto this seat that's like above. And I thought to myself, the only way you're going to get through this is if you fully commit. Like, you have to jump onto the seat and just aim perfectly and keep your center of balance, like on the seat. Because if I do it kind of half-assed and I kind of try to gingerly, like, scoot onto it, I'm just going to flip over again. So I literally, like, set up the kayak and I'm on my feet and I just jump and I land on the seat and I don't flip over and we're good.
And I hand her back her paddle.
So I get my paddle, I'm soaking wet, and then we just start paddling back to the marina.
It's like, welcome back, comrade. Like we got paddling to do. And she's completely soaking wet, like she said. And we just turn around immediately because there's no more fun to be had here. And
time to go home.
and we paddle back to the marina, which takes over an hour. And we finally get back, and we're still in the window where we have to like check in. So, because they said essentially like, yeah, if you're back after the people are gone, then just don't worry about it. Just tie the stuff up. But they're like, but if you're back, like, I think they closed at 6, but they were gone at 7. But I think we were back before that window, and we had to go check in with them. And I remember you just like getting out of the water, and you were wearing all black clothes anyway, like you are right now.
Oh my gosh,
which is, it's a trend, but you got out of the water and you're like soaking wet, and I'm like, they can't tell. They don't know.
My clothes just looked more black.
Yeah.
But my boots were like squeak, squeak, squeak. Oh yeah, I mentioned before I had my extra toughs on, which are like Alaskan boots. Like they are Alaskan rain boots. If you live there, you have some. They're awesome. I love them. I swear they saved my life because I was able to use them. First of all, they didn't come off my feet at all. Second of all, they lost no functionality by being wet because they're supposed to be wet. And they were really helpful when I was trying to swim with that kayak because I could like kind of push off of the rocks, you know, with those boots. And actually at one point, before we had figured out our plan and we were still sitting there thinking, I was like literally standing upright on the rocks with my boots on.
Well, like neck high water.
Neck high water, but I was able to, I don't know, they're really good boots. They just have really good traction and stuff. So I'm a big fan of those boots. I still am. I still have a pair for if it ever rains here, which it never does. But anyways.
Mainly they're just a spider house now.
Yeah, pretty much just a home for spiders.
Sit outside of our home and let black widows live there.
Yeah. But they're still great boots. But anyway, so yeah, my boots are all squeaking as I get off the kayak.
I mean, actually, like Squidward hour. Like, it's just like absolutely squeaking to the docks. And I remember we walked past the girl that like helped check us out, like sign out the kayaks. And she's like at her clipboard. And she's like, "Oh, you guys made it back. Like, did you have a good time?" And I like sort of like walked in and you just kept going. And
I was like, I'm just going straight to the car. I don't want anyone to see me.
She did definitely she like craned her neck. Like, and I was like, yeah, we had a great time. Thank you so much. And like signed the paperwork. Like after she like looked over to like watch your wet footprints make it to land. And yeah, it was just.
I remember once I was back on the kayak though, I was like, already in my mind, I was processing this crisis as I was like filing it away as funny story. You know, I was like, all right, the crisis is over. We're good. Nothing happened. I still have my phone. My phone's still working because I had a good case on it. So even though it got dunked, I brought it out of the water fast enough. I didn't even need to put it in rice or anything. So my phone's good. My keys still work.
We had to put your phone in rice.
Did we?
Yeah.
I thought that was for something else.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Maybe we had to put it in rice, but it worked. It didn't break or anything.
Yeah, your phone worked for years to come. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember as we started paddling back, I started listing all the reasons why this could have been worse. And I was like, I didn't lose my hat. My hat's still on my head. Like, I don't even know if my head.
That's like a debate we had. Yeah. That's a debate we had for like weeks, months, years to come is did your head go underwater? Because you flipped so fast. Like you're like leaning, and you're like just like the entire boat is underwater.
I didn't even have time to think. Like, you know how normally if you're about to fall, you have that thought in your head of, oh, this is happening. This is happening now. I'm falling now.
That horrible feeling. Yeah. Like if you're about to get into a car accident, or if you're about to like have any other type of incident, like you know, like, oh.
You have a second where you think, oh, here we go. This is happening. I didn't even have that moment.
It was so fast.
I was reaching for the rock, and then I was in the water. My kayak's upside down. It happened so fast. And my hat never came off my head, and it wasn't, I don't think it was even wet.
I don't think your glasses were wet.
My glasses. So I think because I was wearing a life jacket, I flipped and I just got righted right away. Basically, like I fell on my side. But your hair was wet. But my hair was wet, so it was really confusing. I don't know.
It happened so quickly, and there was such a discrepancy in evidence that we didn't understand.
I kind of dunked like almost all the way, but not quite or something. Yeah. But thank goodness for life jackets, and always wear them, especially if you're in the ocean.
Especially if you're on kayaks. Mm-hmm. Kayaks can be a lot of fun, but also it can be treacherous, like as to whether or not you're right side up or upside down. You know. And even if you can swim well, life jackets save lives. So
they do, because you could be knocked unconscious. It doesn't matter how good you are at swimming. If you're unconscious, you're not going to swim very well. So always wear them.
That reminded me of the Mike Tyson line. everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. But like,
yeah, kind of.
Everybody's got a plan until they're unconscious because their kayak flipped. And that's
if I had flipped over and smacked my head or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was kind of scary for a minute there, but we got out of it okay, and now it's just a silly story. But I remember as we started paddling back, I started going, well, my phone's okay, my keys are okay, I didn't even lose my hat, I got my glasses. Everything I'm wearing is essentially waterproof, like my boots and everything. I didn't ruin my shoes. And then I said, we didn't lose anything. And then you were like, except your dignity. I was like, exactly. I'll be a little bit embarrassed when I get back to the marina, but I guess that's it.
I am a pessimist. I was the whole ride out there, the whole time that we're like paddling these topsy-turvy weird boats. I was like, we're gonna flip. Like somebody's gonna flip their boat over.
You definitely kept saying that, and I agreed that they were wobbly, but once I kind of got used to it, I was like, nah, we're not going to flip. I started like going faster.
Yeah, you were like trying to show off. Like you were going faster than me on purpose. And I was like, okay, but calm down.
And then I saw a starfish and I'm like, let's get over there. Like I'm just like doing crazy stuff. But yeah, I didn't flip because I was going too fast or paddling or anything like that. It was just that I leaned because I'm dumb. Like, and again, I'm used to the kind where you're sitting in them. And if you're sitting in them, you can lean so far and not flip over.
Yeah, you can lean to the point where the sides underwater.
As long as it's not taking on water, basically. You can lean until it's about to take on water through the side, and you're still fine. So that was different for me. I've never been on one of those before. And if I ever go on one again, I'll know.
So that's pretty much the last adventure we had before we started the process of heading home. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed what you watched so far. We initially intended for this episode to be the last of, or finished up our Alaska story, but it ran longer than we thought it would. So we're going to go ahead and cut it here, and hopefully you guys enjoy the next installment of our Alaska series. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.